Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Talking a little slow, a little tired. I just got off the plane from Capital Audio Fest, a whirlwind weekend. So much fun, so much to talk about. I shouldn't even be doing the video now, but as you know, I do these wrap-ups. I did it from Toronto, fresh off the plane, and I don't even edit these final video wrap-ups, but I feel it's important to give you these wrap-ups because my style of show coverage is basically to go into the rooms, basically quasi-stream. I go in, show you what I'm seeing, and then upload it. I don't even check it before I upload it. Sometimes there's typos or whatnot, but I think that's a way to do things more authentic, and you know, it's just what I'm known for starting several years ago. But I think also it's important to complement that with my wrap-up because so many people have questions. I don't have time at the shows to get to everybody's questions in the comments. It's become quite a whirlwind now going to these shows. So while thoughts are fresh, I did jot down some notes. I'm inevitably going to forget something, but let me get started. But also, real quick, lots of stuff are coming down the pipe. I've got a review I already did of the Musical Fidelity A1. Do not miss that video, okay? Do not miss that. You could skip some of the show coverage and watch this for summary wrap-up if you're trying to catch up, but don't miss the video I'm coming out with the Musical Fidelity A1. Also, what's coming, I'm giving you this backdrop because this is the last time you're going to see this couch in my room, this seating, because I bought the row 1 seating from Cedia with a reclinable head section here to give me even more clearance from my head and ears from reflections. So many people have chairs that go above their ears, and you don't realize how much that impacts reflections and imaging. So, and I just gave away, that's one of the perks of being in the membership section. I just give away my equipment mostly. I have no feedback on audio going. I just give the stuff away. So it's actually a friend or somebody that's a member that's picking up this week. And then I'll have the row 1 in here and a review on that. Now, getting to the show, this show has a sentimental value to me because last year at this time is when I first encountered the Bach and Edgar, and I became a customer immediately. And then as we did the install that day, and he at least could appreciate how I understood the product and how enthusiastic I was about it, next thing you know, within a week or two, he asked me to become a home dealer, and I thought it was a great idea, product that I can get behind because this guy, Edgar, everybody that's bought the Bach, and there's so many of you now, you will all attest, knowing Edgar, getting the value of talking to him is worth the purchase price alone, on top of the measurement tools. But then getting the difference, that 3D type sound that is now true stereo instead of what we've been listening to all along. And I'm going to talk about this at the end of the video. I don't want to turn too much into Bach right now. But yes, this was a very instrumental conference for people getting to hear it, realize that it's real and not a fabrication or some kind of gimmick. This is what's really on the recording. And you can turn your own room and the room at the show into a recording studio to prove it. Still, you can A/B test it. You could turn it off if you don't like it for whatever reason. But one thing that's pretty clear, and I was talking to somebody at the end of the day, if we had always had this type of true stereo from 2 speakers in front of us, and then somebody gave us what we have to listen to now with crosstalk and the collapsed downstage, mostly between the 2 speakers, nobody would choose that now. So, you know, that's why close to 90-something% of people that sit in that chair just are enthused. And it's one product out of all of Audiophile where the designer made an A/B switch so that you can hear it on the fly, and people easily hear a difference when you do A/B a product, which is so rare in this hobby as well. But I'll get to that in more detail maybe at the end. I wanted to stick to other rooms that really stood out to me, and also more the macro takeaway of this show. Every show kind of has that one thing that I think about. Like for Toronto, I'll always remember it for first time encountering the hyphen and the quality of people up in Toronto and the good time and the vibe that that place had. This has a lot of memories as well. Going to dinner with Edgar, some of the stuff we did last night, you may have seen in YouTube shorts. The night with MBL, playing some analog tapes, just so many memories on a personal level. But from an audio standpoint, this was a fabulous, just a fabulous show for highlighting actually reasonable budget stuff. So many of these shows, you think every room you go into, the cables cost more than most people's cars. And it's kind of disassociated from the normal person, and certainly a new person in the hobby. So this was a great show for bringing back some possibilities for state-of-the-art performance at a reasonable cost. So I want to get to those. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, I got a note here. The cost no object stuff, there were some that came to my attention, maybe not to the level of Hyphen in Toronto, but I was impressed with the Kroma Atelier, the $200-something thousand speaker, $250,000 reference speaker. And others also were anecdotally telling me that that was one of their favorite rooms. So it's probably going to be one that I'm going to put in that ballpark now when people are considering, like the Acoras, the Estalons, the MBLs, depending on what your aesthetic tastes are and performance, different types of flavors of performance. It definitely showed promise to join that group. I need to spend a little more time with it, but it definitely was passing the smell test. Another one that was quite interesting and innovative was the Consonus one. It's an open baffle. In theory, its design, and he even mentioned, is very similar to Linkwitz, but the difference is he used sealed box bass versus open baffle bass. And so he's got that hybrid of somewhat open baffle for the mid bass, sealed box for the sub, and then open baffle for mid-range and tweeter, and both of them are the same type driver, planar magnet. And this guy was very impressive. He's an acoustician. Everything he was saying was resonating with me because guess what? I do sealed box sub. I do the GR Research, basically handle my mid bass, and then I have the planar tweeter and a dynamic driver, a little bit different. And I've got a point source array, which gives me a little bit different imaging as well. But that was a promising speaker, and one of the few rooms where I went back twice to hear some songs. Well, actually the first time I couldn't even hear songs, so that's part of the reason I went back. But it definitely showed some promise at a high price point, but definitely up there with one I'm going to definitely keep checking out at future shows. B&O is also, Bang & Olufsen, also impressed me with what look like room treatments are now speakers on the wall. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of tip. The members already know about this, but I bought some property in Fredericksburg, Texas, wine country. And I'm going to build out an Airbnb there, not only to use for myself, but for others. But what I'm actually thinking of doing in addition to just normal Airbnb, it's a great venue property. They're going to have an amphitheater. They're going to have music, beer, wine, distillery, there's golfing there. It's great for guys' weekends, great for girls' weekends. It's a great place to visit. It's like the Napa of the South now. And I was thinking, though, my Airbnb will be a little bit different, catered to audiophiles. And I will have an experience in my Airbnb for audiophiles that'll be like a whole weekend demo of some of the best reference kind of quality music. And Bang & Olufsen actually has some products that would be very innovative to have in especially in family room environments, integrating with the visual. So I saw some products that intrigued me and may be part of that equation when I get to it. So just wanted to give you guys a little bit of insider information, stuff I normally just share on the membership channel. So props to B&O. Of course, before I get to the budget stuff, MBL and Acora rooms were phenomenal. MBL is always great setting up, and then what really stands out, especially with Greg Barron and the United Home Audio, after hours playing, it's so easy to listen to that for hours and enjoy the music. That's what it's really supposed to all be about. And like I've said in my mini wrap-ups, there's very little transient population in the MBL room. When people go in there, they don't just come in and leave as much as I see in other rooms. Probably only the Bach is the only other room where people stay longer in that center seat. And same thing, Acora. You can stay there all night. They will play cool music, and great sound. And it's also very good dispersion in their massive rooms that they normally have, but this was the first time they had a lower ceiling room. It wasn't a perfect room. I think the power was at 97 volts or something. It was something ridiculously poor, and then the floor had a little bit of resonance to it. It was a floating floor, but they were getting great performance. So again, props to them, because both of those brands that do cost no object speakers also spend the time. I think Val was telling me they were there till 3 a.m. last night, spending time playing whatever, having a good time. That's why you buy these systems. If you're just buying them to neurotically listen and compare this to this, and just buying the equipment to listen to equipment instead of for the music, you know, it can get you can burn out on the hobby fast. If you like doing it, so be it. You can do audiophile however you want. But I think long term, if you're not about the music and not enjoying it in that respect, you will get burnt out at some point. I've seen it just over the years. People that used to be in the hobby, eventually they get burnt out. And either they make it about the music, or they simplify their system and just forget about the rat race anymore. So props to MBL and Acora in that cost no object budget. But let's get to the budget rooms, which were really the highlight for me at this show, the takeaway that I'll always remember. And when I say budget, you're going to say, well, what's a budget room? So I'm going to start, and I'm going to have wide variety of budget, but I'm talking about not the obscene amounts that we're normally talking about. Some are going to be much higher than others in this budget, but again, that's relative. I think you'll understand what I'm getting at. And really, for me, and I think a lot of people's budget points, that middle class, upper middle class, or even higher, you don't want to spend a fortune on your gear, but you want to try to get high-end reference level performance without, 5 figures for every piece in your gear, in your system. And on that metric, I have to give props to Odyssey, because Klaus has been doing it for many years. Your whole system, you used to have a banner, could be bought the whole room could be bought for $10,000. And every year it was phenomenal sounding. And you'd go in that room, and then you go into these other rooms, and you'd say, well, what's the difference? Like that room actually sounded better. And so he's kept it evolving. And one of the things you notice, he doesn't have to come out with new products every year like every other brand almost. It's the same products that he's been doing forever. When something works, you don't have to change it. And he offers it at a fair price. And so he's wacky in a good way. That's what I like about him. He's passionate and he's fun. And like I said, his rooms are different. And if you get that sweet spot, I think you'll appreciate that. That's $5,900 speaker. Just by looks alone, you're blown away if you're conditioned for what you normally see. And then his amps, his associated gear. Sometimes he'll bring the symphonic line, which is mega dollars and stuff, but you don't have to use that. I think I've heard him with all the Odyssey stuff. You would be fine. So props to him, again, on quality of music, value, and performance. Another one, guys, Technics. I don't know why people overlook Technics. Unfortunately, their reference speaker, that I think is one of the best speakers out there, especially one of the best box speakers. In fact, Pete, the Greek, bought one based on my recommendation alone. He's had phenomenal gear, as you've seen when we did a walkthrough of his house. And he loves them. And he wouldn't sell it for anything. And now it's kind of a collector's item, because they ended up, just not a seller at the $20,000 to $30,000 retail price for that. But man, their electronics as well, and their turntable, which Pete's going to be buying, the 1000G, I think it's called, or I'm sorry, I'm not up on the turntable stuff, but that one that's around $4,700. I think even JR is getting that one. Okay, so if JR from Wally Tools is getting it, Pete, who's had great turntable rigs, this is a chance. If you can't afford the Domans and the mega dollar turntables, but want to get a taste of that reference level performance, here's people that really know vinyl, and that's what they're buying. Definitely put that on your list, because you should not have a prejudice against Technics. That amplifier, if you listen to the whole talk, has very sophisticated features that probably put to shame these mega chassis, huge heatsink kind of facades that are really just standard, overbuilt, too much power that you never even use or need for your speakers. There's actual technology in that Techniques that I don't think you see in a lot of, quote, high-end amplifiers. So check them out. It was an integrated that they were showing there that was really good. Also at a budget, depending on, you might not consider this budget or not, but I thought the Dyptique was something that may be an enhancement over a Maggie in some respects, and a price point that you might consider it an option from the 20.7s. You know, it just was very impressive that I thought I wanted to make note. It just was an open baffle line source that people should consider if they're also considering some of the bigger Maggies. On a smaller scale, and that's what I'm getting to now, the QLN and Vinnie Rossi room, again, those are going to be fairly expensive for bookshelf and electronics, but high quality sound. And if I had to say, when I went into a room, one of those small rooms, which are very tough to impress me because the sound is not good, as we saw in, we took Bach measurements and then we did the room correction, so we got to see just how bad those rooms are. It's not good, but they were able to get very good performance in that QLN and Vinnie Rossi. Now, getting to some of the insane values. Insane was the Geshelli and the Neil Blanchard, doing the kits and doing it even fully built. Transmission lines are not easy to build. A lot of speaker makers won't make transmission line base because inside the cabinet takes a lot more work than just stuffing polyfill and regular bracing. He's actually using the transmission line channels for actual extra asymmetrical bracing, which I think is brilliant. And it sounded really good in the short doses I had with it. But when I usually go to these shows, I'm not going to get full potential in these rooms anyway. So it's nice to hear a little bit. I like to talk to the designer, and hopefully the higher IQ audiophiles that like my type of channel and like talking the nerd stuff enjoy that talk with Mr. Blanchard, Neil Blanchard, because that's the stuff I get more comfort with than even listening to it. That will come in due course and in a great room, but getting to understand the physics behind it, the design choices, everything was a thumbs up for that Neil Blanchard. And the Geshelli, you can't beat that value for that aesthetic that they're doing is crazy. I know it's going to be polarizing, putting wood with metal and VU meters and all that. I can understand where people say they don't like that. But when you're talking about what is going into it versus the price, and then you go into another room with just a regular chassis, not even billet aluminum, and you're paying a lot more, no, you can't beat that. And that's another family-owned company. I have a family-owned company. It's very hard to compete with big boys on these Sound United and all these big companies doing the economies of scale and offer high quality at a lower cost. They are able to do it. So thumbs up to them doing a family-owned business in today's day and age. Really impressive. Also, the DR Audioworks. They were a favorite of mine last year. He's a cool guy. He had a nice setup again this year, and that was high quality. Mon Acoustics, little bitty speakers. Those were great. I mean, you can't beat that for the money. And then again, quality people behind it at a very reasonable cost. Maco was the open baffle that probably kind of like the hyphen for Toronto. What speaker will I always associate with this show? It's probably the Consonus, the Maco, because I had seen those before. And the Maco is that open baffle, kind of like spatial audio, but it's very thick granite, and it has a little more contouring, narrow. It looks to me a lot better than the flat spatials. Not the spatials are bad looking, but I just think that little subtle contouring and narrowness doesn't look as just flat, and it has a sexiness, a little bigger price tag, but they're offering 40% off already. Early adopters. After that, I think it's going to be closer to 17,000. Now, in the limited audition, we did get an after-hours audition. They did set it up and were kind enough to text me and allow me to come listen to it. And it's so hard with 5 minutes to set up the speakers. They weren't even matched aesthetically pair, and we only had a couple songs before we had to go to dinner. But the potential was there. I'd love to hear them in a room, but I think one of my subscribers actually went to their booth, and I passed by at the same time, and he grabbed me and he asked me, what I thought, and I think he's going to buy them to try them out. And I think he's also buying the Caladan. But in any case, I told him, if you do buy them, you know, give me a call. Let's coordinate, and I will quasi work with him, maybe through a Zoom, to give you guys feedback from an actual owner. And also, I got to know the people behind Maco. Maybe I'll do a Zoom with them, talk to them more when they are in production and being released, and see if we can't find out a little bit more about them. Because on a looks open baffle, that, you know, people that have liked spatials in the past, this might be an option for you for that next level of cabinet and aesthetics. But speaking of spatial, I think the new spatial killer is this Caladan, which was done by Clayton Shaw, who used to be with spatial. I didn't get the whole story. I didn't have much time today. When I went into the room with the Caladan, it was unfortunate. It's the last day. I had a strict limit of maximum 1 to 2 songs in a room just so I could get through things. That's just, unfortunately, guys, that's the way it's going to have to be at these shows now. I mean, obviously, if you're a supporter of the show, if you're one of the industry members that are members of the YouTubes, you know, certain people, I obviously I have to prioritize something, and I'm going to prioritize it to people that are supporters of the channel and people that I know well, and other metrics that just interest me a lot. And again, Caladan did interest me to go in there and make sure it was one of the rooms I did get to, but I couldn't stay long. And when I did go in there, they were playing a song that was very low volume. But I didn't want to change the volume because there was a guy already in the sweet spot. He may have picked that song. He may have told them the volume. I've always, you know, for 30 plus years, I was just a regular Joe going to these things. I was not press, and I didn't like it when people like Fremer would come in and everybody would like kiss their butt and kick out the people. I don't want to do that to people when I go into a room. I'll respect if somebody's in the sweet spot and they're playing something they like. I don't really want to change that, but I stayed for 1.5, 2 songs, and they were both at low volumes that I really couldn't judge the speaker, honestly, and I never got the sweet spot. Obviously, the price point of the Caladan is really good, but it was hyped a lot from what I was getting in my membership section. This guy says it's the best thing ever, or whatever. Look, there's always going to be hype with certain speakers, and whatever. People may legitimately think it's best speaker ever. Some people thought the spatials were the best speakers ever. You know, I caught grief one time in Audio Circle because I put spatials on my channel, compared them to much more expensive, and you know, they fared pretty well, I thought. But because I didn't say they're the best thing I've ever heard, and they're not the best open baffles, people were like, you know, upset. But don't be insecure. If you like them, if they're the best you've ever heard, fine, not a problem. But guess what? It looks like the Caladan is now better than the spatial. So who was right about the spatials? Anyway, that Caladan does look like a lot of speaker for the money. I mean, that price point, it's hard to imagine, especially for a new company, how they could get ramped up and employees to put that together. You know, maybe he's partnering with somebody. There's probably a story behind it that I haven't heard yet. I just can't imagine how he's doing it for that cost, but props to him. And that's another one that for budget, you got to consider it. Unison Research and Opera Audio. Like I said, Fidelity Imports, that guy's got stuff throughout the range that can fit any budget and high quality. You know, Italian made, just pedigree in the industry for many years. These aren't like newcomers, which some people like, and I love to support newcomers and businesses that are trying to get started in this industry. We should support them. But there's something also to be said about these companies that have a long legacy, Unison Research and Opera, that, you know, there's some long-standing pedigree there that you can count on as well. So all of these are variables you're going to put in your equation of what you value and what is important to you. And you've got them here with these lists I'm giving you. At any budget point, you should be able to find something that fits your taste profile. Also, Primare, got to see them at this show. I'm going to be getting their surround sound processor that hasn't been released yet. So excited to get that, because I have 2 right now that I need replaced that are Emotivas that are kind of outdated. Super excited to get a Primare piece because that is one of my favorite chassis builds, the Swiss style of them and the quality of the people behind it that I've met so far, plus the quality inside. When the insides match the outside, it's just a win-win and great value. Again, Primare, thumbs up. You know, probably though, of all the budget brands and value, for my taste and for doing everything from speakers to electronics, there's a lot of companies that do everything. You can say MBL, PBN, Macintosh, Griffin, whatever. But these are very high price point companies that do it all. Margules does it all at a high level, but does it at a reasonable budget. I don't think there's any other company that does everything at such a high level, at such a reasonable budget. And that's what I wanted to kind of close this section on, of high value companies in this industry and high values from this show. That bookshelf, that's the Margules bookshelf at like $4,000. Man, that's a great deal. Fabulous looking and performing, matched with their electronics, doesn't need a lot of wattage. You know, one of the other takeaways, macro takeaways, it comes from the Technics room and Margules. You don't need to outthink these makers. If they've already matched their speakers and made it mate with their amps and their associated gear, stick with the same ecosystem. You can't outthink the designers. Your chances are very rare. Go ahead and go with the same ecosystem. Makes it so much easier for you. And all the aesthetics match. But speaking of bookshelf speakers, one thing, and everybody wants to know, what did you think of OCD Mikey's room? And I thought it sounded fine. And I think those Slate speakers look really nice too, if that's your taste, because Slate is going to be one style. Yeah, okay. I catch grief for going in there with Mike because a lot of people that I know don't like him. And he's kind of, that's his shtick, you know, to be the black sheep, be kind of the pariah. So I'm friends with him. I've known him since before he had a channel, you know, and he actually called me on the way up to Capital Audio Fest, and we talked for like an hour and 45 minutes, but it was mostly, he wanted to tell me what he was bringing to the show, because I didn't even know until recently he was going to the show, because I thought he didn't like shows. Now he wanted to bring something that was new, the Fischer and Fischer, and he was telling me about that. But then I had to ask him about all the drama. So that's what took most of the hour and 45 minutes. I said, what about this guy? Oh, let me tell you about that guy. And well, what about this one? Oh, let me tell you this story. So we went through all of his drama online. It was hilarious. And yes, okay, I'm not going to get involved. I may disagree or agree with him about certain people in the industry. That's not my shtick. That's not my way of dealing with things. He's embraced his style. I'm not his, mama. I'm not here to tell him what to do. What works for him works for him. And his room sounded good. We listened to the bigger ones. I kind of wanted to hear the smaller ones, because I think the bigger ones, two ported bass front is usually not my favorite, although I thought that one sounded really nice. At high volume levels, front ports sometimes can get chuffing and sometimes more issues, but you can get better placement in the room because you don't have that back port. So I think it was a smartly designed speaker. Looks like it would be fine. Maybe I'd still, on one song that he played I know well, I'd probably want a sub with it for ultimate reference, full range performance. But great looks, quality sound. The bookshelves look like one of the good budget options if you like Slate. And actually, that's one thing I talked to him about in that phone call. I was concerned because I used to have Slate tiles, and Slate was so flaky, it would chip. And even at Home Depot, when I go to pick some up, it was hard to find a rack of them that weren't already chipped because it's very porous. Strong once it's installed in some respects, but still flaky, and I didn't know how that would work as a speaker material. But he says they seal them, and because it's very porous, you need to seal it. And so they seal them, and that's what I was touching them. It look very high quality, look very nice. So it should be a quality speaker cabinet design because it does have some non-resonant properties that are good. In fact, I was reminding him there's a guy, the Bocchino was one that big on, he makes these connectors, and he remembered that guy in the hobby, Carmine, was big on Slate for making equipment racks, and I think he even makes it for his own speaker, Slate, for that. So it does have some non-resonant properties, probably could make a good speaker cabinet material. I just didn't have enough time in there to do the smaller ones. I think the smaller ones with a sub may be a very good and appealing option for people. So yeah, I'll probably catch grief for whatever I say about I'm not enthusiastic enough, or vice versa. It's a no-win situation for me sometimes when you get involved with people that have lots of drama, but I'm not his mama. Okay, but people have asked me. There you go. One of the other thing I got to throw out there, accessories. Viablue, great people. They promised to offer discounts to all of my members for those cable elevators, cable stand, cables themselves, vibration control, high quality German engineering. If you watch that video, you look at the quality, man, there's very few cable companies I think are worth the money. Like I said, the ultimate is in acoustic. I went to that facility tour. There's just nothing in my mind that's going to surpass that they can do. But, you know, you have to have a budget for the air dielectric and that quality cable. If you can't, Viablue and Blue Jeans cable now are, you know, two other options I can wholeheartedly recommend to you. And I'm going to have a review of the Blue Jeans cable, because that another thing to watch is that video. The jacketing may not be the sexiest. It may not be the sexiest jewelry type cable. And I know that's important. And I don't begrudge you for buying some. Even if it's 90% of your decision, if that's what you want, fine. But make sure you look under the jacketing and make sure that something's significant there. And that's what I was telling people. I said, go to the Blue Jeans booth, ask them to remove the connector and show you their sonic weld. And then go to any other cable maker and ask you to take the connector off and show you their solder job. That's where sometimes you need to probably worry about what's inside more than what's outside, or at least try to get both. But prioritize what's on the inside. Just look at the sonic welding and the connection quality of the Blue Jeans cable. And that's quite honestly where, when people do hear a difference and where there are measurable differences, oftentimes it comes right from that interface of the connector to the wire. And they do that great. So I would definitely say Blue Jeans cable, highest value cable company in the business. It's very hard to argue that. So again, I think I gave you a lot of budget opportunities to consider, figure out for your taste. Be sure to ask any questions in the comments. I know I probably left something out. Be happy to add captions or add stuff in the future. But stay tuned for this British Fidelity A1 review, because you want to talk about a budget piece that blows things away and the challenge that I set in this video, you got to watch it. So sign up, subscribe, guys, and I'll see you back here soon.